Welcome to the X's and Argos film session for Game 10, Week 12 of the CFL season. My name is Ben Grant. Today we're going to look at how the Toronto Argonauts beat up on man coverage against Hamilton this week. Man coverage has been a serious problem for Toronto since Ottawa exposed them 5 weeks ago, and everyone's been throwing a lot of man coverage at them since then. The issue is that Toronto's receivers haven't been able to get open against man, which is sort of surprising. Most defenses play man in tight to the goal line, but Toronto's been seeing it all over the field, possibly because they don't really have like a true burner like Lucky Whitehead, for example, who can really punish teams deep. And their best mismatch guy, Eric Rogers, has been injured for all but one game. Until this week, Toronto's receivers just haven't been able to create any separation, making passing extremely difficult against man. So the question is, what changed this week? Well, it wasn't actually just one thing. It was a combination of four things: film study, double moves, extending plays, and McLeod Bethel-Thompson dropping dimes. All right, let's start with this one here. This is such a beautiful play. And an important play too, because it allowed Toronto to get back into the game. But so much more went into this play than meets the eye. So a few weeks ago against Hamilton, Toronto ran a play from the 1 yard line with this exact same action out of a similar shotgun left formation. Chad Kelly ended up faking a handoff and then sort of following him into the end zone as well. Banks sort of threw him into the end zone. So earlier this season, they ran a play with this exact same action again, but where Ambles came across to kick out the end on a handoff to Harris. So you've got two plays sort of setting precedent for what was this magic on this night. You know you're getting cover zero down here. Even if you're not Toronto, you're getting cover zero. And I love this right away from the start with the waggle. So Richard Leonard has Gittens Jr. As they get lined up at the beginning here, but as the waggle begins, he's going to cross in behind Ambles, and that's going to force a switch. I'm just going to pause right here. You can see Adeleke and Leonard communicating so that now Adeleke has Gittens Jr. This is brilliant for three reasons. First, there's a chance that this is a bust from the start. That the switch isn't made, no one takes Gittens, or Leonard gets caught in the wash trying to get over. That doesn't happen here, but it could have. Second, this action happens really quickly, and now Adeleke has to stay with Gittens Jr. from a full stop, so he's at a disadvantage getting across. Third, Hamilton is a smart defensive team. You don't want to give them time to think about what they're looking at. You want them reacting impulsively, especially when you're trying to pull a fast one on them like Coach Dinwiddie is here. So Adeleke has less than half a second to register that he's got Gittens, and he's tracking him across. He ends up losing both Gittens and the ball right here behind this wall of bodies. And so he starts to, I guess, have those hours of film study flash through his head. And he's saying, you know what? I've seen this before. And this is where we get back to setting this up. The Chad Kelly quarterback sneak from weeks ago, Ambles kicking out the defensive end from weeks before that. That is what Adeleke is picturing in his mind as he turns the corner here. He's thinking to himself, I've seen this before. So he turns the corner either to shoot the gap and stand up Ouellette if Gittens kicks out, or to blow up the lead block from Gittens if MBT is going to try and take this into the end zone himself. It's neither. Adeleke gets burned. Gittens never stops his feet. Adeleke does. You can't blame him. I'm not trying to rip Adeleke here. It's a great design. Knowing you've got man coverage with the film study, the late switch, this is impossible to defend. Your only hope is Kyle Wilson getting a piece of it at the line, but MBT is not taking any chances. He waits for the window and floats it in there. This is a thing of beauty. All right, we're a bit further out here, 2nd and 10. Hamilton's going to dial up a variation of man 2 with Adeleke taking deep middle and Wilson's sort of sitting here in the underneath hole. Honestly, there isn't too much different between this sort of vertical rendition of man 2 versus a traditional cover 1. They're fairly interchangeable, but this is a great way of taking away the middle of the field. Man 2 in general has been a nightmare for Toronto, and taking away the middle down here is deliberately targeting something that Toronto does well and as a tendency. So I talked about receivers not being able to get open, and it is true, but another part of the problem is they haven't been getting a lot of time. So getting open in 2 seconds is obviously a lot more difficult than getting open in 4 seconds. The pass protection hasn't been great with so many injuries this season on the offensive line and guys playing out of position. So it's hard to blame them for it, but it has been a problem. Any CFL receiver will get open against man if they have enough time, but like I said, you got to have elite speed to do it in under 2 seconds running traditional routes, and the Argos don't really have that. So how do you get more time? Well, the Argos have tried just about everything to get more time, believe me, but here it's MBT doing a little bit of fancy footwork in the pocket. So let's take a look at this here. This is a stunt, or it's supposed to be a stunt, but McKellar ends up losing Wynn off the snap, and so the timing is really weird, both for the defense and the offense. Blake never gets a chance to pass Hauser and pick up Wynn. McKellar's going to end up making up for this beautifully with a strength move right at the end. He's going to hit Wynn in the side. This is why you do all those bench press reps. This is going to take Wynn, the giant, right to the ground. And Bethel Thompson doesn't have anyone open in the 2 seconds he's been given, so he steps up into this open space. But notice how he keeps his eyes downfield. And what does this extra time do that he's now suddenly got? It allows DeVaris Daniels to get free, and McLeod hits him at the 1 yard line for a huge first down. This is great footwork. It's a big save from McKellar, and it is a beautiful ball to DeVaris Daniels, who had time to get open. It's a pretty traditional cover one look from Hamilton here. Toronto's going to dial up a double move. It's a pretty cool one, though. I don't think I've actually seen this variation of a double move here, especially at this part of the field. Double moves are tough when the pass protection isn't there because they take time. So offenses don't run them a lot when you're not getting great pass pro. So it was definitely a risk calling this. Hamilton sends 5, and Wilson's going to end up joining them when Ouellette stays home in protection. And you got to hand it to the O-line on this play. They hold it down just long enough. Bethel Thompson gets good depth as he waits for Ambles. He's going to be our double move guy. Ambles sits just short of the first down, and he kind of waits for a second so Cameron Kelly will fire in. And then he uses Kelly's momentum against him, and he angles for the pylon. This is such a great touch pass from MBT. His release point is so high. Look at where he releases the ball, and he floats it just a little bit to be sure it clears Santos Knox, who gets in there with his hands up late. It's the perfect style of pass, perfect timing, perfect release point. Gorgeous ball, great route from Ambles, and a nice design on 2nd and 7 when you're expecting pressure from the middle. Okay, just before we get into the MBT dropping dimes portion of the program, I just want to show you how to identify man coverage, because I think this is just a cool little trick to put in your bag of tricks, your arsenal of being able to diagnose things on a football field like you have been learning this year with me. So once the play begins, it's not hard to identify man because basically each DB is locked in on one specific guy. But you can actually spot it pre-snap if you know what to look for. And teams will try and disguise it. That's what makes it difficult. But if you're zeroing in on a couple different guys, especially from the stands where it's easier to do, you'll notice some of these little tendencies here. So first, you're going to catch DBs focusing in on the receiver. They're going to look at the guy they're covering instead of looking at the quarterback. Usually if a DB is looking at the quarterback, it's going to be zone. If they're looking at the receiver, it's going to be man. Now, again, they will disguise it. They're trying to trick the quarterback. You can get tricked in the process. Happens to me all the time, but that's a great tell. Who are they looking at? And the more sources you have, the better. So here, the only 2 guys not staring down a receiver are Santos Knox and Kyle Wilson. That usually means that these guys are going to join the rush, except their body language sort of tells a different story. Based on the information available, MBT is probably going to assume that they're going to fan out and take away any in-breaking route. So Wilson is going to keep Daniels from getting open on a drag or a slant or a short dig. And Santos Knox is going to do the same with the slot receiver on the other side. If Wilson and Santos Knox were both coming, Then there's all sorts of possibilities. Daniels has a post, which he probably break off early. Brescason's got a drag. Both of those would be good for a first down. And even more intriguing is that Ouellette has been left alone with Julian Hauser, which is a nice mismatch. I know Hauser's he's good in coverage for he's surprisingly good in coverage for a defensive lineman, but that's still a mismatch in favor of Ouellette. But these guys aren't coming, so those options are taken away. Now, let's talk about the second way that we can recognize man coverage before we go into the rest of this play. The defenders in man usually have inside shade, so they're going to be closer to the quarterback than the receiver is. This is an attempt to force an outside release and take away the easier inside throw. Inside throws are easier than outside throws. Corner routes are great against man. They're almost always open because of this inside technique we just talked about. It's an outbreaking route to the outside. And the nice thing about corners is they're not as dangerous as an out that can be undercut for a pick six. The trouble is that corners are the most difficult route to throw. In this game, with the wind how it was, none of the quarterbacks were connecting on corner routes in pregame warmup. But this is an absolute dime from Bethel Thompson. He drops it in perfectly for Ambles. MBT's a gamer. They couldn't do it pregame. They do it now. Watch how this is awesome too. Watch how MBT stares down Adeleke. He's got to freeze the safety so that Adeleke can't commit to either side. He's got to worry about this pogo concept here from Coxie, who's got a go route, and Daniels on a post, and he's got Ambles running the corner. This is just great work from MBT. Freezes Adeleke. Recognition is great, but the throw is king. All right, does this look like man coverage? You bet it does. So we got a couple guys disguising well, but for the most part, we've got DBs locked in on the receiver in front of them with an inside shade. It's a pretty traditional cover one look. So he's locked up with him, he's locked up with him, he's got Ouellette, he's got him, and Adeleke is the one in the cover one, so he's got deep help. And that just leaves Santos Knox here, and he's going to be blitzing. Ambles has a sort of hesitation slot fade here that I kind of think MBT could have opened up with a pump fake, but he's just going to let his guy make a play down here, as he's done so many times in the past with Tavares against Hamilton. I think we all remember that beautiful 360 in the sunset touchdown against Hamilton last Thanksgiving. Here, MBT, he's got to be especially careful because, like, from the get-go, Adeleke's cheating to the boundary side. But that's also why Carriel Brooks lets Daniel get inside of him, because he knows he's got help there. He doesn't think MBT's going to throw this ball because it's the smallest of windows. But MBT was on fire. He rockets it in there between two defenders in such a way that Daniels is also protected. He's not going to take a big hit here because he can fall away as he's catching it to protect himself from what otherwise would have been a crushing blow from Adeleke. And this is how you know your quarterback is feeling it. Like I said, he was on fire this second half. Speaking of being on fire, forget about the coverage for a second. Let's just look at this throw. And this is also the catch of the night. I want to highlight this play because one of Bethel Thompson's weaknesses over the past two seasons has been hitting outside receivers on go routes. He hasn't been able to do it. We've seen him miss open receivers. We've seen him just been a yard or two off on guys that had a step. Here, Coxie's isolated on the outside with quads to the right. The ball is placed in the middle of the field, so that leaves a lot of space for Coxie in ISO here. He's going to release to the outside, but if he can get back on his stem, which I should explain that term. To get back on your stem as a receiver is like to get back on the line that you were originally on. So his release outside, that's normally where you'd go on a go route. You release outside, but you don't want to let a DB sort of force you into the sideline. You want to get back on your stem. And if Coxie can do that, that leaves him almost 10 yards of this alley for him to work with. This is a perfect throw, but look at this job of tracking from Coxie. This is just a gorgeous, gorgeous catch and a perfect throw. 2 plays later, Bethel Thompson still on fire. This is cover one across the board. It's meant to look like an all-out blitz that's going to leave the middle of the field wide open, but this is a trap. If I could do an Admiral Akbar impression, I would do it right here. I was gonna try it. Now I have to. That's a trap. Okay, that's my best Admiral Akbar. This is a trap. Julian Hauser, who, as we've talked about many times, is often sent into coverage downfield. He's going to fire back across the middle, looking to poach any quick sight adjustment from the receivers that are looking to make hay into this void. Daniels, however, even though he does kind of go inside, he has enough depth. And MBT once again is just able to rocket one in there between two defenders. That last play was really nice. This might have been the throw of the night. Look how he threads the needle here. Daniels isn't really open per se, but it's just a remarkable throw to wrap up what was a remarkable day against man coverage for the Toronto Argonauts. How much of it can be put in the bank and used week to week, I guess we'll have to see. But for this week anyway, the Toronto Argonauts were pretty successful against man. That's going to do it for this X's and Argos film session. My name is Ben Grant. You can find me on Twitter at Ben_Grant. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.